Hello everyone! Back in 2020 I did a video where I got choked up talking about the 1937 film Stella Dallas. Today I'm going to talk about the lesser-known silent version of the same story released in 1925. And we'll see if I get choked up again. I hope not. Belle Bennett stars as Stella, a lower-class young woman who meets Ronald Colman's Stephen Dallas, a promising young man from a lofty background, and marries him. Her coarse behavior and her friendship with a rowdy horse trainer soon drive a wedge between them, and when Stephen is transferred to New York, Stella insists on staying behind with their young daughter Laurel. But as Laurel gets older, Stella begins to fear that she is holding her little girl back. I love the 1937 film. I have seen it several times, and every time it seems to make me cry more. I don't know if that's an anticipation thing or what. Barbara Stanwyck gives an amazing performance, and Anne Shirley as her daughter is also excellent. So going into this, I felt pretty sure that even if it was good, it probably wouldn't have the effect on me that the later film has. I also doubted I'd have enough to say to make a whole video, yet here we are. I had never heard of Belle Bennett before, and at first I found her performance kind of exaggerated. But as the film went along, I became more and more impressed. There's the physical aspect. Over time, Stella morphs into a frumpy, middle-aged woman with thick ankles. Her taste for layers adds bulk, the heavy makeup she dons to maintain her youth backfires, and later, anxiety and exhaustion from putting on a charade for her daughter make her look haggard. But it's with her face that Bennett communicates Stella's complicated emotions, and she does a wonderful job. Bennett, 34, was selected from over 70 candidates for the role. She claimed to be a full decade younger than she was, and she pretended that her 16-year-old son from her first marriage was actually a younger brother. This boy died during production, and whether her sudden tragic loss affected her performance, I can only speculate. Bennett herself died in 1932 from cancer at age 41. Now, anyone who's been watching this channel for any length of time knows that Ronald Colman is one of my favorite actors. I could complain that there's not enough of him in the movie, but hey, it's not about his character. And when he is in a scene, he is great. Stephen Dallas is a static character overall, but Colman does give him some depth. We see evidence of his love and attraction to Stella early on, and then we see it wither and turn not into disgust, but disappointment. The film also demonstrates that the issue isn't just that Stella is a little tacky, that she has a poor sense of style, no sense of etiquette. No, it's her behavior that's the real problem. The way she calls the uncouth Eddie Munn over to her tea party, and then gets drunk with him in the middle of the day, and brings him home to the baby. In Stephen's eyes, this shameless behavior is disgraceful, and when he tries to take her away from this bad influence, she resists him, and then that's that. The way he sees it, she's made her choice, she's rejected him, this is what she wants, and, well, credit to the guy. He says, okay, I'll let you have your way. I am hard-pressed to decide which version of Eddie Munn I find more obnoxious. There's a scene here where he's spitting pellets or seeds at people and getting them annoyed with each other and then blaming someone else, and it's so stupid and so immature, and I just wanted to hit him. And then with Stella's 10-year-old daughter, he's downright creepy. He's poking her, tickling her, trying to kiss her, sitting there as Stella takes her dress off, chasing her to her bedroom. He's gross, just disgusting. But the worse he behaves, the more poorly it reflects on Stella's judgment for tolerating him and allowing him near her child. Laurel is played, at all ages except babyhood, by Lois Moran in her film debut. A little bio-info on her. After suffering the loss of both father and stepfather as a child, Moran and her mother spent time in Paris, where young Lois had a career as a singer and dancer at the Paris Opera. She made a bit of a splash in this film, and then she was in a few others. She was in some musicals once sound became a thing, and she performed on Broadway, and later in her career she did a little bit of television. But her greatest claim to fame is that she had an affair with F. Scott Fitzgerald, who modeled the character of Rosemary in his painfully autobiographical novel Tender is the Night after her. Something about Lois Moran's face reminds me of Thomasine Mackenzie. I thought this as soon as I saw her and couldn't shake it, and then the next day I compared pictures of the two, and I think the resemblance is uncanny. Moran's performance here is very strong as well. Just like Bennett, she gets better and better as the story advances. It was the birthday party sequence, which would be the most heartbreaking part of the film if the film didn't keep going, where I started to feel like, yes, this version is really cooking. It's the way Stella sneaks a doubtful look at Laurel when she opens her present from her father, and the way she's trying to make the best of an unfortunate situation, and it turns out Laurel is doing the exact same thing. As Laurel writes in her new diary, there's a look that comes over Stella's face, like, is my baby happy, or is she really hurt by this? And I think she's also recognizing that her baby is growing up. And then they eat ice cream, or at least I think it's ice cream, and since they're no longer trying to bolster each other's spirits, they sink into private agony until Laurel bursts into tears. It's all just one scene. It might have even been shot in one take, but there are a couple close-up inserts that break it up, and it just... yeah, it was the first scene that really got me, where I was like, oh boy, there go the eyeballs! And what helps make the story so touching is that Laurel is equally devoted to her mother. Stella's love for her daughter is pure and true. It is the best thing about her, and as Laurel grows up, we see that she reciprocates that deep, selfless love. Stella will eventually deny herself in order to give her child a better future, but Laurel makes it harder by refusing to go. Laurel would rather sacrifice her own happiness to remain with her mother, looking after her and shielding her from the world's ridicule. That's why Stella is eventually forced to take extreme measures in order to push Laurel away. I think this version actually does a better job with the segue to the country club stay where Laurel falls in love with Richard Grosvenor. It takes a little more time with this section, and I think it pays off. And whoa, a very young Douglas Fairbanks Jr. plays Laurel's suitor. I didn't know that he'd been in any silent films while his parents were still holding their own at the box office. I thought that he made his debut in Little Caesar in 1931. You can tell Fairbanks was going places. Even as a youth, he has screen presence, subtlety, and leading man appeal. And it's so funny to me that 12 years after this, he and the man who plays Laurel's father would be sword fighting each other in The Prisoner of Zenda. They really made Stella look like a bizarre caricature as she parades around the grounds. You can't help feeling sorry for Laurel as she panics and runs away. It's a terrible thing to do, running away from her mother and pretending like she doesn't know her because she doesn't want her friends to know that they're related. But I get it. I mean, we all go through a period of teenage mortification. It's like a rite of passage or something, that period where everything that your parents do in public embarrasses you somehow. I didn't suffer from it too much, but yeah, there were times, especially when they'd be talking about me, that's when I would want to just sink into the ground and be like, oh, Mom, Dad. But this is like that situation on steroids. She's never seen her mother through other people's eyes before, and now she realizes that they're laughing at her, and it's like she can see what a strange picture her mother presents, and the mortification is just too much for her, and she has to flee the situation. I don't like it, but I understand it, and she makes up for it in the train scene. Another heartbreaking sequence that I loved. I cannot decide which version does a better job with this sequence, because they're both really good. Moran has such an expressive face, so many emotions flickering by, and you might miss it because there's no close-up, but when Laurel snuggles next to her mother, Stella surreptitiously wipes away a tear in the dark. Oh my goodness, keep it together, Weaselberry. I also want to mention the saintly Mrs. Morrison. She's always dressed in white or light-colored clothing with long, wispy sleeves, giving her an almost angelic appearance. She's the polar opposite of Stella Dallas in terms of refinement, but she receives her with respect and sympathy. She sees through Stella's performance, and she does everything she can to facilitate her. And this reception and warmth and kindness comes from a woman who probably should feel some resentment towards Stella because she wants to marry Stephen and she could do it if he were free. You know, this is just another character who is sensitive and selfless and good. Probably unrealistically so. When Stella asks if she can take a rose to remember her daughter's new room by, there's beautiful acting there, and then later when she's trying to reapply her mascara but keeps crying it off. This movie was like, I'm gonna make you cry, I'm gonna do it one way or the other. And I know that will make some people want to avoid it. Some people shy away from movies that are sad, that are sincere, that are going to make them feel raw and tender emotions. But I think when it makes you cry, it's making you feel emotional in a good way. This version of Stella Dallas was directed by Henry King, who boasts a fairly diverse filmography in terms of genre. He previously worked with Ronald Colman in 1923, opposite Lillian Gish in The White Sister, and they worked a third time on the western The Winning of Barbara Worth. Henry King directed Tyrone Power a number of times in the 1939 western Jesse James, war comedy A Yank in the RAF, Swashbucklers, The Black Swan, and Captain from Castile, Borgia epic Prince of Foxes, among others. He made several films with Gregory Peck, including war classic 12 O'Clock High, western The Gunfighter, The Snows of Kilimanjaro, and others. He did a couple dramas with Jennifer Jones, the romance Love is a Many Splendored Thing, and The Song of Bernadette, which is considered one of his best works. And he even made a couple musicals, Alexander's Ragtime Band and Carousel. So apparently the only genres King didn't touch in his long career were horror and science fiction. Both versions of Stella Dallas were adaptations of the best-selling 1923 novel by Olive Higgins Prouty, and this screenplay was adapted by Frances Marion, herself a prolific screenwriter with a massive list of credits. She wrote many films for Mary Pickford, she adapted the Lillian Gish version of The Scarlet Letter, she adapted Camille and The Good Earth in the 30s, she wrote the sharp 1933 ensemble comedy Dinner at 8, and lots of other stuff. The 25 version is very close to the 37 version, which indicates to me that they're probably both faithful to the novel. This version does have a couple extra things, like Stella briefly contemplating suicide, and Stephen's father shooting himself to avoid an embezzlement scandal, and Stella and Eddie Munn seen going to a room together. We also see a couple bare bottoms in a non-sexual context, and that was surprising. The other things, however, I figure are in the book, but they're not in the 37 version because they didn't pass the Hays Code. Unfortunately, it seems the movie is only available to stream on the Criterion channel, which many of you don't have. I thought that it was also on Tubi, because that's what the internet told me, but then I went to check, and no, they only have the 37 version. There is an upload on Dailymotion, so you could take your chances with that, and there are some DVD copies out there. Maybe your library has it. Also, some releases of the 37 version include the 25 one as a special feature. However, it might not have a music score. The version on Criterion is an excellent print with a wonderful, lively orchestral score composed by Stephen Horn, and the soundtrack is a live concert performance. At the end, you hear applause, and this music added a lot to the film. It definitely enhanced my enjoyment of it. So, if you have to watch a version that is poor quality and doesn't have this music, I'm sorry. I was very happy with the movie. I went into it with lower expectations because of my fondness for the later version, but it's equally beautiful, equally touching. The acting is harder to compare because a silent film is such a different medium, but I was really impressed with the leads, especially the two main actresses. Their performances are warm, expressive, and dignified, and they did an exceptional job bringing out what makes the story so moving. I hope you enjoyed this review, and happy Mother's Day to any moms who are watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you again next Saturday. Thanks for watching.